Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Another episode of On the Wrong Lead Live here. Yeah, the summer is over. Well, I mean, I guess technically not, but, end of Labor Day. Del Mar's done. Saratoga's done. Churchill Downs just cost me a lot of money tonight. So, fall is in the air. Yeah, we're going back to Churchill Downs. We're going back to Aqueduct. We're going back to Keeneland in a month, and then we got the Breeders' Cup. So, um, yeah, just kind of a weird time of year, but we have some good racing, and honestly, I'm sure Mark and Caleb, when they join, they will agree that sometimes this type of racing is really where the best betting happens. It's not necessarily just these stakes laden cards where you get 5 or 6 graded stakes in a row. Sometimes they tend to be a little formful. You get bombs here and there, but sometimes they're either absolutely impossible or just because there's one bomb in the sequence and there's a bunch of other chalk, that doesn't necessarily mean that it pays out. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about and the sequence. I think is rather interesting, depending on there's maybe one short price favorite, depending on your opinion on there. But let me bring in the New York specialist himself, Mr. Mark Capitan. What you flinched when I called you the New York specialist?
I don't know. That feels like too much, right? Like after the summer I had at Saratoga, it feels like that's a little I don't know, more than I
Did,
deserve,
did
right?
you hit anything
But
at Saratoga this year?
a couple pick fives, but honestly, if I looked at my volume, it was pretty light this year. It was just one of those years where I mean, there's certain stuff I'm always playing around with and always chasing, but I just was, a hard time finding the value, hard time finding spots that I really loved. And when I did find spots, I just found them to be really overbet. A lot of smart money. And I think that's what kind of you're alluding to in the lead in, where, if you play even if you're playing Saratoga on the regular, right? A lot of smart money there. A lot of people who make sure those lines and make sure those odds at post time are pretty correct. You can play something like, Fall Aqueduct or even Fall Keeneland, and I think you can find those overlays. You can find a little more value because I don't know if the sharps take a break after some of the big meets or what it is, but it does seem to be there's a little bit more value to be found at those kind of tracks where you can and actually I have a bunch of value plays and I'm against a bunch of favorites in this sequence, so it's one of those fun ones to kind of dabble around with.
Yeah, for sure. And I took a look at Friday's card with the Wolf of Oak Lawn on the Notorious OTB, so you can check that out on your favorite podcast app. And we did the $100 bankroll for Friday, and Mark caught a stray. He is not yet to
As
listen
is the
to it.
way. I mean,
Yep.
that always happens. Yeah, I gotta listen
And
to it
I
well.
did have to mention the Wilson shoot as well, because I know Chase loves the Wilson shoot.
Chase loves
Um,
some shoot. Yep.
but Yeah, I looked at that, and I thought I found some pretty good spot plays in there, and I'm trying not to be so negative, Mark, because I'll tell you what, man, that Kentucky Downs meet, I
Was
had
brutal.
a couple of,
Absolutely brutal. I
yeah.
got myself live in a pick five like 3 or 4 different times to 5 figure scores and just could not connect. And yeah, and it's funny at Kentucky Downs because I think we both remember when Kentucky Downs kind of exploded, just right pre-COVID, right, 5, 6 years ago. You'd be like, dude, I love this 20 to 1, and the 21 would win, and you'd have you could you'd make your month or you'd make your year. I mean, in really quick fashion with a double or something. And I think, you do get a little more value just on the field sizes, but these days people have gotten much better at approaching that track and understanding the biases and that it's a unique surface and how it plays. And it's just not as good as it once was. Although amazing meat, like I love the fact that they are just dumping money into into the prize pools. It's great to see those big money purses on some of those races, but there's definitely some takeaways out of that meet.
Yeah, and I saw Ed DeRosa post. There was like a 30 or 40%, I think, increase in purses. And it was only like an 8% increase in handle. So,
I think there's something.
and they raised takeout.
Yeah, and there is takeout.
So
There's definitely something to be said that, and again, you mentioned this in the lead-in, right? Just because you don't have five G1s in a row doesn't inherently mean that you don't have a really good fun sequence to play. And I don't think that the quality of the racing necessarily is indicative of the size of the purses or the namey flash type horses. Um, so yeah, something to be said for that.
yeah, for sure. And I did see Stephanie over here saying there's a 10K hit and split for the late pick five
Ooh,
tomorrow
ooh. That might be worth
on the
me
Arum
me
Bet.
putting
So
me actually using my Naira Bets account for those kind of things. That's a very nice promo. They've done a few of those this year. I know Matt put up. They had a hit it and split it at a Cinnabon earlier, and then I think probably a few weeks back. They've had a few of these kind of ones. Like it's nice to see an ADW, and again, we're friends with Matt, who is their head of social. But we don't get anything off that. It's really nice to see an ADW being like, hey, we're gonna put a little extra incentive behind some of the stuff we're pushing. So we're not just pushing you to play it. We're gonna actually make it a little worth your while. Put a little a little extra in the pool, and that's very cool to see. That's a very nice thing.
oh, I was just checking to see if that was Caleb. Caleb is actually house hunting today, so he is out and about. So he is supposed to be joining us at any minute here, but we'll maybe just have to get started without him here. And yeah, so we got a pick five sequence here at Belmont at the Big Way A, Aqueduct, or just Aqueduct. We don't have to get too into it, but yeah, it's gonna start race 7. And we're going to start with a mile and 16th on the turf, 90K maiden special weight here. And we got a field of, it looks like 12 in here. We have no AEs, no MTOs. So nice full field of 12. And your morning line favorite is the 2 Davy Crockett at 5-2. 7-2 on valuation metric, 9-2 on barricade, 6-1 on don't ghost me, double digits on everybody else. Mark, I'll be honest, man. I had a hard time looking past the two chalks here, and another thing I have a hard time looking past is this good looking man here on happy birthday, Caleb.
Thanks, guys.
Happy birthday, buddy! What do you
Yeah.
like? You finally turned 21.
Yeah, I'm gonna have my first beer tonight.
Hey, how was the house hunting?
Dude, it's so rough. I don't want to talk about it.
It's the worst thing ever. It's
every
horrible.
time you think you find one, there's just something that's like wrong enough I can't get over it. And they're not like small things. Like the one today, like a block away, there was 6 homeless people in tents camped out on a random green space. Like concerning enough that I wouldn't want them as my neighbors, but like just shit like that. So it's it's annoying. I'm ready to be done.
Well, we're jumping right in here to the Belmont late pick 5, and I had a hard time looking past the two favorites in this race, the 2 Davy Crockett and the 4 valuation metric. I really looked hard trying to find something in the pedigree, find something, some trainer stat, something to kind of get I look elsewhere here, and I just didn't really see it. The only real kind of thing of note in here is there is a first-time starter, the 6 Dacto, who is a half to stakes-winning Fort Bragg. So go figure. I was looking at the Brisnet stats here. I saw the Dam has 1 starter, 1 winner, 1 stakes winner, and that's a really high DPI number. And sure enough, it's Fort Bragg, who of course is a dirt. I think ran his best race going a mile, probably the Pat Day mile last year, if I had to guess. But I think he had another good race. Yeah. So I don't know. I landed on the 2 and the 4 here. Mark, where did you kind of land?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you for the most part. I think that I think both the 2 and the 4 make a lot of sense, right? And we say that a lot, but I didn't get it super creative with the 2 I have on top, but I do feel like if you're looking for value in the sequence, or you're looking for a price, I thought this was the race where you might want to go a little bit deeper. I thought horses like, again, it's a 9-2 shot, so the 5-horse Barricade, the Pletcher that's here, and then I thought some other horses like, maybe Don't Ghost Me, the other Chad, who has Eric Cancel up, and shocking enough, Eric Cancel up for Chad Brown in the last year is 56% with a $7.21 ROI. I realize that's mainly winter ducked and on the turf. It's not, one of those like he's some sort of, gets these super live chads at huge prices or something. But I thought, I didn't. I think Don't Ghost Me makes some sense in here. And then I also thought a horse like the 11 Mortal Lock for George Weaver was also a little interesting. Yeah, you're getting Gomez up, but I thought that first race actually wasn't that bad. Horse was a little slow getting out of the gate, and had a lot to do late, and was running a decent race, and I think that may be a little bit of a Baby Z pattern in there as well. So I thought somebody like that made a little sense. So I thought there were some other ways you could go in here. I think this is a kind of a sequence that I think ABC makes a lot of sense for, because I think Josh's 2 and the 4 were the same top 2 that I landed on. So I want most of my money going through those, but I thought there were some other ways you could go in here and try to spice up what is a fun little sequence, but you got to be alive to hit it, right?
Caleb, any thoughts on this race?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've looked at this race for about a minute, and that's going to be kind of the routine of the stream for me, is that it's about a minute. So with that being said, I think the 2 and the 4 could win, but I also think they really were set up in that race pretty well. If you look at that, time form has that race as extremely fast. So I do think that they sort of benefited, from a pretty fast racing flow. That if you look at a horse like the 5 Barricade, he did not benefit from a race flow. They went 51 and change to the half. Fractions are blue, extremely slow in a race that was dominated on the front end. Third place finisher Warlander came back to win at Kentucky Downs a little while ago, and a couple other horses came out of that race to maybe not win, but improve their speed figure by 10 or 15 points. So I think Barricade's one that really ran a great race, given the dynamics being against him, where he missed the break, he was behind a slow place, and was closing pretty well late. So not normally the kind of horse I would go to, like a Pletcher on turf here, but I do think he's one that at 9-2, I actually would say he's the horse to beat.
Wow, you taking a Pletcher horse?
He's taking a Pletcher maiden on turf. It's not just a Pletcher horse. Let's add a little extra, cachet there.
All right. Let's. Mark, you said you had a couple other ways you wanted to go. Like, you want to kind of talk through the rest of the horses you had there?
Yeah, no, I think I used the barricade who, for all the reasons Caleb mentioned, and very well could go off, go off as a favorite in this race, right? I honestly, not that much longer a price, and I think if Caleb is seeing it and I'm seeing it, probably a lot of sharp people are, and they're going to probably, knock that price down. A Barricade who may end up being, your favorite or co-favorite kind of horse. I had mentioned the 8, Don't Ghost Me, who's the other Chad. Always like me another Chad, and also just, Eric Cancel does not win at Saratoga, then suddenly they come back downstate and he starts winning again as we get into a more, late season fall winter duct. So, that one actually may be a live horse and interesting from a bunch of angles. I had mentioned the 11 Mortal Lock. The other horse I had mentioned is the 3 horse strategist, Katie Davis up on Danny Gargan horse. You know, Danny Gargan's maiden or his 2 year olds normally need a race. I realized the horse basically ran up the track first out, but he's 21% with 2 year old second timers. So, at 30 to 1, it's a horse I don't want to let beat me. Yeah, it's Katie. It's probably not the most live horse ever, but pedigree's there. And, sometimes these just need a start, and it tends to be a little softer company downstate. The other horse that I did have mentioned down was again, angles that'll make Caleb wince, but the 9 well suited, the Bill Mott first time turf horse. Junior sticks up, and he normally does with all these Mott horses. Pedigree says this one should like the turf, and more than likely may have needed a start, as many of these Mount Firsters do. So there's some other ways you could go in here. I'll be fairly spready. I'll probably, if I play this sequence, I'll probably 6 or 7 deep. That kind of spread here, because I think the next 2 races I can be pretty aggressive and get pretty skinny.
All right. Well, before we move on to race 8 here, we'll take a little bourbon break because I have something that I know people love to see on stream. I have a bottle that needs to be opened. So
Oh God.
I have a
So
bottle.
so we have like a 30-minute interlude while Josh tries to get the cork out of a bottle.
I have to turn off the. Oh crap! I don't know if I can. Where's my video? Here, let's do this. All right, so you guys can see my messy background, but so it's a Knob Creek single barrel, but it's got a fun little sticker on the back. It's got a little Ninja Turtle sticker here. So
Yeah, cool.
it's my there's a local bourbon group here that did a pick a little bit ago. So I think I've been sitting on this bottle. It's a 10-year pick. So I've been sitting on this bottle probably for about 2 years, and I haven't opened it yet. So figure what better time to open it than for this.
So opening at a Churchill, big event
You
for you.
saved it for my birthday. That was so
Oh
nice.
yeah, for Caleb's birthday, exactly. Caleb,
Oh, that's the reason. Okay.
have you found a place yet
So I,
for bourbon, not house? 'Cause I know you've been
yeah,
struggling with that.
I found some places recommended on Reddit, but they're on the opposite side of the city. They're on like the east side of Denver, which I'm not really trying to go to. Um, but yeah, I mean, I personally stopped by. I did pull into just one random spot I saw the other day, just kind of in a shopping plaza somewhere, and I was quite disappointed. So hopefully that is not a sign of the overall quality here, but we will see.
Well, I got the wax off, but now I can't get the damn cap off. So I will. I'll have to work on that in a second here. But all right, race 8 here. We got 6 furlongs on the outer turf, and yeah, we got 14 horses in here. We got a couple of AEs. Looks like we got a field of 10 for this race here. Your morning line favorite at 5 to 2 is going to be the 7 in our time, 9 to 2 on risk threshold. You got some middle prices on a couple other horses here. But Mark, I'll let you go first. Where did you land here?
I think I can single in this race, and I'm gonna land on the 1 horse. I realize this is a maiden breaker last out, but it's Chad Brown maiden breaker last out. Horse, wired a field last out at Aqueduct. Horse has a lot of early speed, and if I remember correctly, which I may not be, but if I remember correctly, to start the Aqueduct turf meet when they got back from Saratoga last year, speed was very good on the turf. So I will take, and I guess there's also a sort of conversation of, I mean, Josh, you are nothing if not consistent.
The cork broke.
Uh-huh. Oh no, yes, okay. So, going back to risk threshold, this is a field full of horses that are won for a lot of races. This is not a field that likes to get their photo taken. There's a lot of, 1 for 20s and 1 for 10s and those kind of horses that just don't win a lot. And I think this is, one of those Chads that Clearly, there were some issues. They seemed to got him sorted out. Did not run this horse back at Saratoga. I don't think this horse is a monster by any means. I think it's interesting that Junior's up on this horse versus somebody else, but all the jocks that have ridden him before or elsewhere, and I think he just might take him gate to wire. Junior on the front end is he's a very sharp jock and he's very good on the turf and have no issues. I think getting pretty darn aggressive to risk threshold. Who, if you're a time form person, has about I don't know 6 or 8 point advantage over anybody else's best recently in the field here.
I am absolutely shocked that you picked a Chad horse in a turf sprint. I mean, if there's ever a time to bet against Chad, it's I think in these turf sprints. And I don't know. I just feel like this horse has been kind of flat. The last three, the 3 times, even though they've cut a horse back, I don't see a ton of improvement there. So yeah, I definitely faded there. I ended up on 2 horses. I kind of flip flop on which one I preferred, but the 8 Lamorna for Bill Mott and Manny Franco. Obviously, this is one that took a little bit break its maiden, but did break its maiden last time out at Saratoga, and it's got some pretty decent speed figures going back to last year as a 2-year-old. So it took a while to break its maiden. Surprise, surprise, a Bill Mott horse that took a long time to break its maiden. Not all of them can win first time unless Caleb's betting them. But getting Lasix for the first time, Bill Mott's definitely one who I kind of feel like when he gets a horse kind of right and winning, he tends to kind of keep him that way. You get Manny Franco aboard, which I mean, I guess I'm not thrilled, but hey, it's Aqueduct and nobody is here. Everybody is at Woodbine or elsewhere. So, I thought Lamorna made a bunch of sense. And then the 9, Leslie's Humor here for Dylan Flavian Davis. Obviously Dylan had just a fantastic Saratoga meet. And seems to kind of start getting first call for Christophe Clement. Especially with Joel, I don't know if Joel is here or not, but
Well,
I
Joel
see.
apparently completely forgot how to ride a horse, and I think that's why you're seeing other jockeys getting first call because Joel was atrocious at both Saratoga, and then he went to Keeneland, he went to Kentucky Downs, where he was even worse. So,
Yeah, but broke its maiden at Monmouth on the turf, and got washed off, but ran huge in that that last race at Saratoga. I think it's kind of a versatile type horse. If he gets the lead, sure, but I think doesn't need the lead. It has happy to sit off, and Lamorna is definitely kind of that 1-run closer there. So Manny Franco hopefully doesn't have to think too much with that horse. I guess maybe my only concern is pace wise, I wasn't really sure who was going to go to lead. Maybe the 7 in our time for Safi Joseph and Eric Cancel, but I don't know. I think he kind of got an easy trip, last time out.
how does the one not end up in the lead here? Doesn't the one just? I mean, rail drawn has early speed. Doesn't the one just kind of end up on the lead here?
I mean, it just doesn't look the one's as fast though. I mean, that second fraction was blazing fast, but I don't know. I maybe you're right. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not. I don't know. I just wasn't interested in the one in this spot, and maybe it's just me being anti Chad Brown, anti chalk. Maybe I'm just doing my best Caleb impression here, but I just kind of landed on the 8 and the 9 here. A couple alternatives, try to get around some of the shorter prices here. Caleb, where did you land?
Yeah, I had a hard time coming up with anything really clever in this race. I do think the one at 9-2. I think the one looks extremely good. I think that's a pretty lousy line. I think he goes off at more like 5-2 probably. I guess it will depend on what they do within our time. This is a horse that I don't know that I'm super interested in him. I mean, a short price on the horse, kind of moving up in class with a jockey downgrade and a new configuration here. I mean, I think he has some questions, or she has some questions to answer. I think you can at least say risk threshold. Yeah, it's kind of proven at this trip already. It gets the inside draw, so maybe gets a little bit loose. But yeah, at 9-2, I think the horse is usable, but I do fear she'll be quite a bit shorter. And then beyond that, I mean, I just really couldn't find anything super clever to use. I did kind of like both the horses Josh mentioned with Leslie Sumer and Lamorna. I do wonder if Lamorna might just be left with too much to do late because she really can't. Seems like she can't get out of the gate cleanly and is going to be spotting the field, half a dozen lengths at least. And I don't see a ton of speed in here. And then because of that, that's kind of part of the reason why the one horse we haven't talked about yet that I did have some interest in is the number 2 Toasted Roll. That was loud. What was that?
I'm trying to use a wrench to open
Josh
up
is
my
still
bottle
trying
of
to
bourbon.
open a bottle of bourbon because if we have a theme in this show, it's that Josh can't open it.
I mean, and the funny thing is that I've never had a problem opening up a bottle of Knob Creek. So, and like obviously, I'm just keeping the shtick going. But no, of course, I all of a sudden now I can't open up a damn bottle of Knob Creek, and I'm trying to get this cork out without breaking it.
Well, you work on that. Toasted Roll, anyway. This is admittedly a bit of a reach just because none of the short prices in here really do a whole lot for me. And, if I'm going to end up on a horse that I'm lukewarm on, I'd much rather, him or her be 12-1. And to me, this is a horse that they really thought they had a turf sprinter. I mean, they debuted this horse at Kentucky Downs going 6.5. She ran pretty well and kind of split the field going, 5th of 11. And then just had a string of bad weather / bad turf management at Churchill, where she was off the turf in her next 3 starts and managed to win one of them, just outlasting the rest of the field. But I'm not really convinced that she's maybe really best going long on dirt. It seems like the connections maybe realized that too. They cut her back to a sprint at Turfway and then laid her up for the rest of the season, brought her back at Ellis in a couple of turf routes where she flashed really good early speed and then just got a little bit tired late. She improved last time, second off the layoff, and I think second off or third off the layoff, a little more improvement here, and then getting back to a distance where I think that maybe despite her pedigree, she may have more success. She's one in here that I think is live at a longer price. I mean, which is curious to me that despite the fact that Frosted was more of a long distance turf horse, it does seem like most of his progeny tend to do better going a little bit shorter. So that's something that a reason why I may think this horse may be a little bit better cutting back to 1 turn.
So I see that circle and that X next to the turf course at Churchill. Does Churchill even have a turf course anymore? Because last I checked, they don't do that there anymore. Like they can't grow grass in Kentucky, right? Like this is just a thing.
Look at I gave them a pass the first year, right? Okay, the roots didn't take, right?
Are we on
year
3?
3?
3?
Yeah.
It's year 3, right?
What the hell is going on? Literally, it's the bluegrass state. The state is known for grass. How do you not know how to grow grass? I do not understand it. Look I'm not a maintenance guy, right? I mean, I probably don't know how to grow grass, even given my background, right? My nationality. I don't know, dude. I haven't cut the grass in 20 years. What are we doing? How has this gone so badly after all the money they put into it? I just don't understand. That being said, love Churchill Downs. Great place to visit, and I will still be betting the meet because I'm a sucker. Anything else you guys want to add on this race?
I think it's called Stockholm Syndrome, Josh.
I mean, probably.
Could you go down to the 6, please?
Go on to the 6, absolutely.
Yeah, I sort of did like Fantastical in here a touch. This is a horse that, if you watch Kentucky Downs, you realize Joe Sharp's barn suddenly was absolutely on fire. Horse that comes out of one of the Ellis Park preview days, which are normally prep days for the Kentucky Downs meet. which is much deeper waters than you'd have here. So those fields tend to be loaded and kind of merry-go-rounded. First time. Well, I guess it's not technically first time. They tried to debut this horse on turf. Then they ran into that Ellis. They tried, got rained off, ran in dirt, 2 cent races, and then back to turf at that Ellis race, and merry-go-rounded to a pretty decent second. I like the fact that Joe is shipping this one back, back to New York, where probably they're running into a little bit softer company than if they were to run other places. Or it could also be that, I don't know where else actually is turf racing, that he would have an option where he has a stable. But I thought fantastical. That last race wasn't bad. This horse has some tactical speed, so it can be forwardly placed in a race that does not have a ton of speed. Kendrick's never seen a horse that he didn't think was a speed horse, so I think this horse could be a part of that pace complexion. And I bet you get a fairly square price at somewhere around that 8-1 price. So I thought Fantastical was the other one in here in this field that I wanted a little bit of, probably as a B.
The horse that Fantastical lost to last time out was actually a pretty good horse in the name of Pharaoh's Wine. I think ran like second or third in the Jessamine either earlier this year or last year. And then just ran, I believe, in a grade 2 at Kentucky Downs. Didn't run all that great, but I mean, it's still grade 2. So finishing second to a horse that is definitely got stakes potential there. I think does make sense. And honestly, the similar to Caleb's horse that he mentioned earlier, the two I definitely try to make a case for. Because I love these horses that go a mile on a turf, go 2 turns on a turf, cut back to a sprint, and they've shown some speed. So I kind of like that a little bit because being able to have the stamina to go that mile and then the cut back while already showing some speed usually means that at like 6.5 you're going to be tactical. So you see that with the 2, and then you also see that with your 6 there, Fantastical, that cutback angle. So anything else in this race? All right, let's move on to race 9. We're going to be going 6 furlongs on the dirt here, and we have a pair of entries in the 1. The 1A, and the 2, and the 2B. It looks like the 6, Brighter Days Ahead, is going to be your morning line favorite at 2-1. And I wasn't very I don't know. I just couldn't get very creative in this spot, and I landed on the 6, Brighter Days Ahead. I just think that this horse just looks better than everybody else in here. I think, a horse is tactical enough that, wants to be on the pace, but doesn't necessarily have to be on the lead. Will be more than happy if somebody else wants to go faster early, to go ahead and go in front. But honestly, I just don't know if anyone is faster early than the 6. So I think has has every chance to kind of go wire to wire here. So I was just very uncreative, and I singled the 6, Brighter Days Ahead. And lo and behold, I singled the speed. Caleb, what did you think here?
Yeah, I don't really disagree with you too much, and I think it's an interesting race in the sense that I'm going to channel my inner Josh. If you look at the optics plot for the race, I mean, it does seem like maybe the 7 or 1 or 2B can kind of try to get involved, but the more I look at it, I just don't think anybody's getting ahead of Brighter Days Ahead. Tom Amos is phenomenal first off the claim. I mean, Jose D'Angelo's no slouch either. Don't get me wrong. Horse was defeated last time, but I tend to think that despite that being a 25,000 level claimer, the fact that it was at Saratoga, I think it's probably a bit of a better race than what he's catching here. The other speed horse that he was dueling with that day ended up finishing towards the back, I think 3rd from last, beaten a couple of lengths there. So I do think he kind of was the best of the speeds on that race there. And yeah, I mean, the horse was clearly just in over his head for a long time last year, got back to a reasonable level, won, and then came up with a good second. I wish I had something more unique to say, but I largely agree with you, Josh, that to me that this is a race that I think it's hard to make a case for anything too insane, but it is a cheap Naira claimer, so you never know.
Yeah, I very much agree with what Josh and Caleb said here. I landed on the 6 as a lone A. I do have two horses underneath that I was a little bit interested in that are both kind of prices, but I mean, I think for all the reasons, Amos is great off the claim. Horse has a ton of speed, but a ton of tactical speed. And honestly, probably should have won that last out race, except for kind of had a wonky trip if you watch the replay. Two other horses in here that I was a little bit interested in were first off the 3 Screaming Uncle for Randy Prasad, who is getting back to an appropriate class level. They had this horse in 2 allowances in a row where it's just he was just way way over his head. Horse that has done well at Aqueduct. 3 for 8 lifetime there. You're getting a bit of a price in the morning line, and this is the appropriate level. This is his friends, and this is where he should be running at. So I think returning back to that appropriate level, you'll see a much improved performance out of him. The other horse I was a little interested in was the 8-horse Papa Rocket, who is, if there ends up being I can see a scenario that when you have these 1 and 1As and the 2 and the 2Bs things, you assume that one of those horses in those co-entries is going to be very aggressively, sent, or at least be very much a part of the pace complexion. So you're gonna have the 6, the 2B, and I don't know if the 1 or the 1A, probably the 1 of those 2 co-entries ends up going. If that does set up a scenario where they go a little fast early, I thought somebody like Papa Rocket, who is the closer that I want in this race, and Rob Eltris kind of disappeared at Saratoga. He was like, I think he had only 1 win on the meet, if I remember right. He was like 1 for 36 or something absurd like that. But we're getting back to where Rob Eltris does his stuff, which is in these climbing ranks downstate at the lower levels at Belmont and Aqueduct. And this is your closer, and he's getting Lascano up, who he has done very well with historically, and also a horse that's getting back, getting a little class relief off the last. So I thought that Papa Rocket was an interesting horse here with that should get a little setup up front, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you're much more brave than I, or maybe less brave than I, because you're using multiple horses. I don't know how to take that one. But
right now I have the 6 as a lone A, and then I have the 3 of the 8 underneath as Bs. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe in the event that both halves of the 1 stay in, I mean, do they use Mr. JT to try to get out there and set it up for the stablemate, or vice versa? I mean, I don't know that they're really quick enough to go, but it is tough to see that if both halves of the 1 and the 2 end up running, that I assume that there's enough speed in half those entries to ensure an honest pace. So I do think that the 6 is not a single that I feel highly confident in. It's more of that I just don't really like anybody else. And maybe like one horse I would look at, although I'd like to see him, give him a race first, would be Air Show. This is a stalwart of the low-level Naira claimers who definitely comes through and really owes me nothing over the past couple of years. But, the horse wins here and there when he's supposed to. I mean, clearly something went wrong last time. He took a lot of time off, and now he comes back. And I just find it interesting that Rudy elects to run him not for a tag. Clearly, you may interpret that as this is kind of a prep, that they're kind of giving him a race. Maybe he's not fully fit, or maybe he's just trying to go in there and steal a purse without risking the horse. But either way, they think highly enough of this horse to not expose him, even though it's a 6-year-old gelding coming off of a 9-month layoff. So he's one that at one time did have a little bit of speed, now more of a closer. But if the good Air Show does show up, I mean, he can definitely win this race.
That's kind of a without a tag for an asterisk, isn't it? I mean, the only reason he's not in for a tag is because of the long layoff, not because he's in a spot where he's not exposed.
Right, that's optional to waive that tag. He could put him in for a tag if he's trying to get rid of the horse.
Okay. I got where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm not saying as if it's like an optional claiming race. It's he could run him for the tag if he was trying to dump him. The fact that he knows he's not a stakes horse, but he still doesn't want to get rid of him, I mean, to me, would tell me that despite the poor effort last time, they still believe in the horse his ability to win at roughly the same level he's competed at most of his career.
Yeah, so I also will say Airshow owes me nothing. Horse that I've done very, very, very well with over his years, and always sort of wins at a price, which is kind of cool. But man, I wish Rudy was better off the long layoff. I mean, Rudy is absolutely atrocious off this kind of layoff. So he's like 5% off the 180 day. A horse that I want to see a race out of before I really get behind. But I did the same thing. I stared at him for quite a long time because he's a horse that I've done very well with. So
Yeah.
and also, I love the carding of Naira going from a claiming 25 to a G3. That's just chef's kiss.
I mean, isn't this just Belmont, like just Belmont in like a nutshell? That you go from a 20K claimer to hey, here's a grade 3 with some European horses, right? Like we're gonna be going a mile and 3/8 here on the turf in the Jockey Club Oaks Invitational, grade 3, like Mark had mentioned, and surprisingly, we get 11 horses in a turf stakes in New York, and I mean, Mark, you already know who I like in this race.
yeah, I do.
Cross-entered in
on-
Friday's card, so we got to make sure that Makanga decides to run here. But I don't
do
know,
you really
man.
want? I want to like Makanga, and then I see the jock who's on Makanga, and I go, "Oh God, I can't touch that with a 10-foot pole." So, I mean, all the respect in the world for you, you're gonna get your price, I would assume. And if speed's good on the turf, man, you do you, Josh. I all the respect in the world, but I just can't be there with you, bud.
Man, I looked at this race and I don't know. I didn't really have. I mean, these are some just like not good. Oh, I don't want to say they're not good horses, but they're just not. When we see these invitational turf races in New York, I feel like we get stronger fields in this normally. But we do have a couple. Well, we have one shipper coming over, but coming over from Germany, which we don't get too many of. We tend to see, obviously the UK. We'll see, France every once in a while, and there was that German horse a couple years ago. Caleb will know off the top of his head, who won the Prix.
You mean the
At a
arc?
humongous price, or the Arc, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah, but it's not it's not gonna be a bog on Saturday, so Caleb can't
it's
bet
not
the
right.
German horse, right? So
Yeah, that was.
I thought the same thing.
Torquato Tasso.
Yeah, thank you.
Tasso, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, finished third in a G1 last time out. So, but once again, that was on soft turf. You look at, you kind of look at the good. I mean, it does have a win on good turf, but that's going all the way back to, I mean, early last year as a 2-year-old. So, I don't know. I just wasn't really impressed here, and I mean, it's going to Jack Sisterson, which it does look like, hey, he's 30% first time start with him, but I don't know, Mark. I'm sure you have some type of shipping stats. I mean, has he done well with these first time Euro horses?
Doesn't get a lot of them. Does very well with them.
Oh, okay. Well,
He's
that
he's 25% first in North America. Negative $1.88 ROI. So they tend to take money. So again, this is one if you're somebody who's maybe not playing the pick 5, or you're playing the pick daily double or something here, because the next 2 races are really good. If this horse isn't taking money, maybe not be as live, right?
yeah. I'm gonna give another shot to the Appleby horse here, the 4 Beautiful Love. Mark is shaking his head, so maybe I'm completely wrong here, but we'll go ahead. We'll give another shot to this one. I think stretching out, looking at the pedigree, I think going further is probably good for this horse. They tried it in Lake Placid, going a mile and 16th. And for a lot of these European horses, that's not really far enough. I mean, this was a horse that was winning at a mile, so not necessarily, that she couldn't have won going to mile 16th. But I do think that the added distance is going to help here for the 4 Beautiful Love. And then yeah, I'm going to be using Makanga and just see if Lane Luzzy can catch them asleep at the wheel as Mark nearly knocks over his drink there. But where did you land, Mark?
I did the glass, wine glass to the microphone thing, which is never a good combo. No, I think my take on this race is more who I'm against, and I took the exact opposite take that you had on Beautiful Love, Josh, and that's that I don't think this horse wants to go this far. I know the pedigree says that should be able to handle the distance, but both ones came at a mile, and as they've gone, I mean, the one race that was longer than a mile was pretty poor. Horse really just didn't seem to have any finishing kick. Now, there's an argument made that did not get the best trip, was floated a little wide there, but looked just really empty in the lane. And I don't necessarily know if this horse does want to go further, or if just caught some softer fields. I mean that Newmarket race was a $9,000 allowance, and that Meydan race was it's in Meydan, but it was a $47,000 allowance. So figure that's like I don't know, about a quarter than normally the purse price when you convert them back to the U.S. So I don't know what a $10,000 allowance like that's. I don't really think that this horse was beating up on anybody. I don't think the company was that great, and I really don't know if Beautiful Love wants to go any further than this. But I think this horse takes money on the Charlie Appleby angle. And my thought with Lady Mary is this is a horse that has one win at debut and has just kind of runs and hits the board. Now, if you want a horse underneath in a exacta or a trifecta, I think Lady Mary is a really interesting player. But it used to be when you chase these Euros coming to the States, they would be doing something like either you'd find a really classy horse that was coming over to find softer company. And I don't think either of these two fall into this, and neither one of them are getting Lasix here. So I think that gap between Euro turfers and U.S. turfers is not as big as it was 5 or 10 years ago. And I think both of these horses will take money on the fact that they're both Euro shippers coming to the States. I just don't think that necessarily moves them up a ton. With all that being said, I still need to be fairly spready here. And so I have 3 horses as A's. The first one is Just an Eye, the 5 for Danny Gargan. Comes out of some pretty decent Saratoga races, paired last out buyers. Our good friend Sheldon does love to chase him some paired last out buyers. Horses tend to take a step forward off that. And, good connections all the way around. I realize coming out of Allowance Company and stepping up in class, but as Josh has already said, I don't think this is the classiest of, there's no monsters in here. The second horse is Mont Saint Michel, the 6 for Brendan Walsh, a horse that is getting a little bit of stealth class relief. My God, that is not that hard, Mark. And a horse that is stretching out, but I think getting into seeing some different friends coming out of one of those Ellis Park, Kentucky Downs prep races, which do tend to come up pretty salty. And the third horse I had in here was the 9 Mixologist, the Brad Cox with Ruben Severa up. Not the jock that I really want to be betting, going a little bit of a longer turf race, but horse, has 1, 2, or 3. I realized one of those was through DQ, and speed figures are pretty solid. This is another horse that is cross-entered on the Friday card as well, so we'll see which one they end up in. But I think Mixologist fits pretty darn well with this race, that to the point that Josh has already made, did not come up crazy salty, so I think is a horse that I'm pretty interested in here.
Caleb.
Yeah, for me, I'm Team Josh in this race. I see the race very similar. I think the 2 chalks are the horses to beat. Mostly Lady Mary, the German invader. I get Mark's point of she's not really winning necessarily, but I mean, you look at some of the races she's been. I mean, the German 1,000 Guineas. I mean, a couple of Group 1s over there. Has lost to the same horse a couple of times with Erle, who I'm not really familiar with, but clearly is a very accomplished German runner. So, and like you said, this isn't very salty. I mean, if this was the Grade 1 that had 2 Chad Browns in it, and an Aiden and 2 Applebee's, then yeah, maybe this horse doesn't get a look for me. But we're really talking about allowance winners and New York breds and others that I just think this field came up very soft, and Sisterson found a really good spot to debut Lady Mary in here. She likes the distance, and I think she's the most talented horse in the field. I'm a little more skeptical of Beautiful Love. I will give her one more chance simply because of her effort 3 back in the Jumeirah Classic. She lost to Cinderella's Dream by 2 lengths, and I think Cinderella's Dream is the best female turf horse we've seen in our half of the world. With that being said, I don't know what happened in the last race. I mean, I didn't watch the replay because I haven't had time. I remember that I feel like I was mad at the ride, but I can't remember why. So I do need to go back and watch that. But I will say this is a horse that, 3 back and 2 back. I mean, maybe she beat nothing 2 back. I think that's a fair point. But running second by 2 lengths to Cinderella's Dream, who would absolutely dust this field by as many as she wants, I think. I think, that I'm almost willing to look past her last race, say, I don't know what happened. I'll give her one more chance maybe. But, at 4-1 and, potentially as the favorite, I think that's a hard thing to do. But she is one that, if not for that race, she would be a toss for me. But I guess I'll give her perhaps one more chance. And then I have been waiting to bet Makonga for what feels like months. And she routinely keeps turning up in what I think are just really bad spots. And that has sort of continued here, as I don't really think she's a 1 3/8 horse. I mean, last time she didn't get the right trip. I mean, she didn't really settle very well for Velasquez. Now you get Lane Luzzy, who has to try to get her to settle. I mean, she does appear to be somewhat of a runoff type, but but her race 2 back in the Wild Applause was phenomenal, where she just set blistering fractions and got run down late by ultra deep closers. Maybe she bounced last out. That's kind of my hope. Maybe she didn't care for Saratoga. I mean, I don't know what happened, but the fractions weren't that quick for her to back up the way that she did. I mean, granted, she did lose to Cinderella's Dream, but the others in there, I don't know. I'm not sure how much I think of them. Regardless, this is a horse that I think has tons of ability, just has not been getting the right trips and has not been put in the right spots. I'm not convinced this is the right spot or this jockey will give her the right trip. But at 8-1 and what appears to be close to lone speed, I'll give her another shot.
Mark, you look disgusted.
I just, Josh, I know the horses you're going to be on, but sometimes I still have a little hope for Caleb and okay. No, I do agree with what both you guys said. I think of the two, Lady Mary is the more interesting Euro shipper. I still think there's some upside to be proven there. I think I'm done with Beautiful Love. I don't know what happened in the last, but I was not super happy with that ride, but also I just she was so flat in the lane that I just really don't know what the deal is. Don't want to say I'm super. I don't know. I'm not super disappointed, but yeah, I don't know. Caleb, I expect you to find some 20-1 like this 11 American Dreammaker, who I expected you would somehow make a case for, and I'm disappointed that you didn't.
I wish I could have. I mean, it's just this is kind of a race that I feel that if I'm going to go beyond those two, I almost want the whole field. Is kind of how I look at this race, because I really can't separate any of the. I know you made a case for a couple, and I don't disagree with you. They might be marginally more likely in my mind, but I don't think they're significantly more likely than some of the 10 or 20-1s.
And I very much respect that take. Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah, I think it's a pretty flat race. So those are tough.
Who did you land on, Mark?
I was on the 5, the 6, and the 9.
The 5. Okay, just the 9.
Yeah.
What was the other one?
Yeah. I don't know out of that who I'm most interested in. Honestly, it'd probably be the 5, to tell you right, Just and I. So,
all right.
At least we can get the distance.
We're going to close this out with a 1/16 on the outer turf. Lots of turf racing, probably making up for lost time at Saratoga. But 1/16 here, maiden claimer, 40,000, and oversubscribed race. We got 10 in the main. We got 3 AEs, and we got 3 MTOs. And man, your morning line favorite is going to be the 7 out of favor at 5-2. Um, and yeah, there's just a ton of horses kind of at the
I
same prices there. You're gonna say, Mark?
I was gonna say I have a feeling that I'm gonna get to hear Caleb say my favorite thing that Caleb ever says about this 7.
Dude, this I
It's the most. It's the most. This is the most stereotypical thing ever, right here, Caleb. Right here. Here it
I
is.
mean it
Here
is,
it is.
and
It's the fakest Chad that has ever faked a Chad. His whole
that ever
life.
fake chatted, right? Like this is the stereotypical definition of a fake chat. Look at those Monmouth works. Look at all of them.
Dude,
They're
it's
He had
everywhere.
a
awful.
Tampa race with the Monmouth Works.
Guys, I'm gonna hit the defensive A alert on myself over here because definitely my third choice in this race. And I mean, it's just I don't know. I had a hard time. I mean, at least they're dropping in class. Like they're dropping from maiden special weight to 40K claim. I mean, this is just a dump. They just want to get rid of this horse. But I don't know, maybe they pick up a check. But the two other horses I used, the 4 Victory Dash, obviously, hey, it's a speed horse. And I just think at Ellis maybe might have gotten a little too zealous there on the front end, and Edgar Morales might have just gone a little too bad, and then I mean was very green, ducked out, and ended up interfering with another horse and getting DQ down to 6th. Like you get Eric Cancel aboard, who is Mark has mentioned is I think a different jockey at Aqueduct when half the colony isn't here, so. I'll give another look to Victory Dash here on the front end. Maybe being able to go wire to wire. And the other horse I was really interested in is this 5 Poker Joker. Romero Mirage rides for Christophe Clement, and Christophe with turf horses. I mean, you guys know the book on him. He's a guy who I'll give more tries than a guy like Chad or Todd on getting the horse going. And I feel like he's at least been realistic with this horse that he did start at Tampa and Monmouth, maybe taking the fake Chad route there. And then immediately, they're like, all right, this is the maiden claimer. They put him in 75K. Kind of just ran evenly. There's a little bit of trouble noted in the trip. I don't know how much trouble there is, but they're dropping again. And Romero staying aboard, and we've talked a little bit about Christoph. He's got the jocks he likes to use. So I don't know. I think the fact that he called Romero again for this one, he must have not completely hated what he saw last time out, and we're dropping the class here, and we're not going further. I think a mile and 16th maybe is asking a bit in the pedigree department for this horse, but. I thought one that might be interesting. That could be making up some ground late. And then the 7 out of favor. I don't want to get Caleb'd. I mean, I honestly I think that's the only thing I can say is I don't want to get Caleb'd in here.
That I respect. I respect that at least. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I thought this was a tough race. I mean, I think similar to how you kind of mentioned the last race, Caleb. Once I look past those kind of horses, I'm just like, all right, I can start using I can use a bunch of these, right? Because I think a lot of these other horses that have a ton of tries, they all start to look kind of samey. And, like you don't necessarily got the world beaters in here with horses, except, I mean, maybe the one Truly Warrior for Todd Pletcher. But, I mean, you got the trainers that have 7 starts on the year, 101 starts with 6% win rate, 54 starts. You don't necessarily have, the typical New York trainers in here. So I kind of looked at some familiar faces in Christoph and Michael Michelli, who's a little bit more, or Michelli, he's a little bit. I think he's usually sneaky good. He's usually like a 12% guy, and. He doesn't have a huge barn. And then obviously Chad, wins whenever he wants. But, Yeah, this is a real fake Chad, and I'm a little embarrassed that I ended up using this horse. Caleb, where did you land? Not on the 7, obviously, but
Yeah, not on the 7. I mean, these are races that I simultaneously love and hate because these are races that oftentimes I just get so frustrated with, and I will lose to the horse at 2-1. But oftentimes these are the races where I come up with some absurd 20-1 because horses like the 7 are just horses I'm not going to have. Horses like the 1. I mean, I'm less against, but also a horse I'm not highly likely to have. So when you get beyond those two, it kind of opens the field up a lot. I do agree with your opinion of the 4, Josh. I think Victory Dance is interesting. I'd like to go back and watch that race because it looks like the pace was pretty swift. And then it says ducked out and then placed 6th. I mean, I almost wonder if, clearly he caused some of his own trouble in that, but I almost wonder, would he have finished better than 4th if he didn't get a little bit green there in the lane? So that's something I'd like to take a look at, but with the Churchill time form nastiness, I haven't pulled the replay up yet. Another horse that is somewhat similar, and I'm really kind of reaching into the weeds here, is the number 8 Salacious. Another horse that has early speed, and to me, this is kind of a horse that I think probably is a turf horse. I mean, debuted on synthetic and then stretched out to go long on turf, tried going long on the synthetic at Gulfstream. None of those races were poor. I mean, the speed figures were on par with essentially what most other horses were running, at that point, and faster than what some of horses have yet to run, actually, considering those figures were recorded as December of his 2-year-old season. So much more mature now, has yet to be back on turf, and has yet to be on turf against inferior competition at this level. Yeah, he was dropped in for 20 last time at Saratoga, but if you kind of accept the premise that he's probably just a little bit better on the turf, then I'm willing to forgive that a little bit. I mean, the dam has produced 12 starters, 10 of which have won, and 5 of which have won on turf. So I'm kind of just leaning for some, off the wall angles here, trying to find a way around the 1 and 7. But I think if you are looking beyond them to avoid what Josh is running into, where every horse looks the same, I think sometimes you do have to squint a little bit. So that's a horse that I can probably squint enough to get to. I do think the most likely winner in this race is actually the 13 if he draws in. He will need a lot of help to do so, but I think he's probably your most likely winner if he gets into this field. And then the other AE that I liked a bit was the 11, simply because Linda's second time out, always a strong angle. Pedigree here, tends to suggest that longer will be better than shorter. You're getting one of the more accomplished jocks in this colony with Kendrick when you factor in everyone who's out of town. And the horse just never had a chance in the debut. I mean, lost action, stumbled, never really got a clean run. A little concerning that she is dropping him that quickly after an obvious troubled trip. But, this is Linda. I mean, she moves through her barn pretty quickly. She plays the claiming game. So 1 at 15-1 that I would have on most of my tickets if he manages to draw.
Yeah, I was fairly simplistic in here. I'm somebody that when I see a race like this, I'm looking for those droppers, right? And for me, the droppers were the One Truly Warrior. Coming out of the maiden hundreds at Saratoga, there are softer maiden races, so that's the top tier, and they're finally just saying, hey, we took a couple of shots. We don't know. This would just need softer company. I realize I'm betting Bernardini and turf on the bottom end, but I'll let the Callawag give me crap for that. The other horse that I was really interested in was the horse Caleb just mentioned, Liberté Bayou, who is the Linda horse. Linda also happens to be, again, Linda does go through her barn pretty quickly. She aggressively spots these horses. The name of this horse is very cool given the pedigree. If you do a little bit, if you're into history, it's a pretty cool naming on that one. But Linda is 47% going maiden special to maiden claim in the last 2 years with a $4.29 ROI. So pretty crazy ROI stats on that 11. So that is probably actually my top pick in this race. It is a little frustrating to see her take this aggressive move this early with this horse, but There could be a lot of other reasons that they're doing that. It may just simply be somebody who has a few too many horses and needs to liquidate some inventory. Somebody who, there could be a lot of other reasons going on there from the business side. It also could be a horse that they were very much wanting to get a win at Saratoga, and it didn't happen, so they're okay letting that one go. They paid, they only paid 120 for this horse, and if they win, in this spot, they're going to basically recoup their, what they spent on the horse and effectively break even. And probably not a monster, but maybe a horse that fits very well in this, in this spot. And the other horse that I have as a B right now, and is probably a B, is overrating the horse, is the 2 Mano Mano. Who is the Wayne Potts horse, who's the 3rd dropper in the field. Big price, didn't do any running last out for Maddie. Basically no factor at all. But I've seen crazier things happen than a horse coming out of a maiden special weight, dropping in for a tag, and taking a massive step forward.
All right. Anything else in this race we want to talk about?
This is the kind of race that I almost couldn't have enough horses.
I get that. Yeah, I do. I really do.
Yeah, that's
all right. Let's all right, we got some time, so why don't we move on over to Woodbine here. And I figured we'd take at least a look at the Woodbine Mile, which always is a really great race. Usually draws it's starting to draw more and more European attention as of late. I think Woodbine in general has started, at least the last couple of years for sure, drawing more and more European type horses over.
I think you see a lot of horses that come here and they'll race in this race. They can go to Keeneland and race in what's the big turf mile in the fall at Keeneland? It's not the
Maker's Mark Mile or the Shadwell Mile.
Is it Maker? Yeah, I think Maker's Mark's in the spring. It's the fall one, whatever it is. I think, yeah. And then they can go Breeders' Cup Turf Mile so that they can run that series. And there's a lot of money between those 3 races. So if you have a talented horse, you're seeing a lot of people shipping in for these spots. So, this field came up pretty interesting, honestly.
Yeah, your morning line favorite at even money is a Charles Appleby horse, which is the 2 Naval Power. I think once you kind of look outside of the 2, you have a Filo di Ariana at 5-2, Big Rock at 6-1, and then pick your price on the rest of the horses in this field. Mark, where did you kind of land here?
I wasn't super creative here. I think you just single Naval Power and move on. I realize he's finished this in second place his last 2 starts, but he just is kind of at a different level than most of the horses in this field. I mean, there's an argument made, there's the local horse, and there's a horse that's first time turf on the inside, and there's a lot of asterisks, but I tend to not like those asterisk step up, make something changed horses, especially in a grade 1. This horse has been the deep end of the pool. Both those Maidan races were very, very nice, and one at Ascot going 7, in 2022. So there is the long layoff in there. I realize it. They're kind of getting this one back into form and really finally getting to see what's this one really made of. But I think Naval Power just kind of towers above this field, and I had a hard time going much beyond him.
You agree with him, Caleb?
I don't vehemently disagree. I mean, I do think that there's others in here that I find interesting, and they're going to be much better prices. But I have nothing against Naval Power. I do think that he's a very nice horse. I mean, he got 2 seconds here in domestic sport arts. I have no issue at all with the second to Master of the Seas. I think he was actually probably best in that race, 2 back at Keeneland. But then his loss against Program Trading, I don't love. I mean, the pace wasn't all that fast, for the distance there. He had a comfortable trip and just kind of got nailed late. I don't think a ton of Program Trading, although he's fine. There were a lot of good horses behind him in that Turf Classic. I mean, Integration, Webslinger. I'm sorry, I said Integration and Good. Webslinger.
You said Webslinger and Good, though.
I would take Webslinger over Integration. But at the time, there was a lot of horses that people thought were good in May. I'll say that. I do think maybe some of those horses, I mean, Integration, Web Slinger, obviously, Farbridge, for example, have turned out to maybe be not as good as we thought. I'm very busy. Had the one huge run at Fairgrounds and kind of never really backed that up. So it's a strong race, right? But the horse has kind of showed up here twice, has lost twice, and there are other horses in here who are within shouting distance on numbers and on speed figures that I think can make this a more interesting race. Appleby does kind of own this race, so I won't be surprised if Naval Power ends up winning comfortably. But I think it's a race where I'd almost be inclined to look for some prices as well. What do you think?
So you agree with Ed the Roastia that he thinks Naval Power is 1-9 in this field?
No. Well, like actually goes off at 1-9, or he thinks he's 1-9 to win.
1-9 to win.
No.
I think so. That's where fair value was, but well, I mean, there's no way you get even money on Naval Power, right? You get like 3 to 5 on that horse at best.
It depends on how much money I think Big Rock takes, because the 2023 version of Big Rock would probably be the favorite over Naval Power. I mean, this is a horse who lost by a length to Inspiral when she was a monster. Has been within a length of a couple of Group 1 scores. Did have an outstanding race in the Queen Elizabeth II at Ascot, but the 2024 version of Big Rock is a little more of a head scratcher. So I don't know how much support he'll really attract in here, but I think he is one that certainly on his day wins this race. And then you do get the local horse, Philo di Ariana. People love a horse for course angle. I mean, 5 for 5 at Woodbine. Clearly loves this track. I don't think that as an 8-year-old, I don't think he's quite good enough. He would need to show a race as an 8-year-old that he's never seen before by quite a margin. So I don't think so. But I still wouldn't say 1-9.
I wouldn't bet Philo with Josh's money. I mean, quite honestly,
no, I'm not a big Philo fan.
You guys know I love speed. And I'm not even on that horse.
That line on that horse is terrible. I mean, 5-2 on that is just atrocious. That horse is exposed every time he gets into like real company. And I realize horse for course, and that's great. But who's he ever faced in those Woodbine races?
Has he won this race?
Go on.
Has he won this race, Caleb?
I don't think so.
I didn't know if one of those races was the Woodbine. I know
he's been campaigned a little odd. I mean, they constantly kind of move him between routes and sprints, but he kind of handles them all. I mean, I don't think he's at his best at a mile, even though he certainly handles it. Mm-hmm. I think he's really more of like a 7 furlong kind of horse. But I think that's why he's 5 for 5 at Woodbine, is that they do have the 1-turn mile configuration here on the turf. And I do think that sets up well for his strengths. I just don't think he's good enough to win.
Yeah, I liked Big Rock in this spot, but I think the more we talk and think and talk about this, I don't know if I'm going to get the price I would need to bet Big Rock. I mean 6-1 I think is no. I mean, maybe Big Rock and Philo kind of swap, and then at that point I think Big Rock is going to be too short for me. I think I would need like 9-2, 4-1 on Big Rock to kind of feel good about it. But I think some concerns, like you said, Caleb, since turning 4, had a great 3-year-old campaign, and we're talking finishing second to Inspiral, and I don't know what's happened since turning 4. It just hasn't really been close, but still has been bet, pretty consistently. So, obviously, I think getting a huge amount of class relief, shipping over from the races it's been running in, and maybe that'll be enough here. I don't know. We'll kind of see. I mean, I do agree. Naval Power looks really, really tough. But when I see even money on the line, I'm thinking we're going to get 2 to 5 on the horse probably going off. Horizontally, I think maybe you just use the 2 European horses but I don't know how much value you're going to get with Naval Power. I haven't looked at the rest of the sequence, so I can't say one way or the other if there's, if I got a bunch of bombs elsewhere, I'm not going to Caleb myself, but at least my initial look at this is, hey, I want to try and beat naval power, and I really think there's only one alternative, and that's Big Rock. My only fear is I think that everyone else is going to see it the same way I do, and Big Rock ends up being real short. I agree with you. I think Field de Ariana is in over his head in this spot, and I mean, could run second or third, but I have a hard time seeing this horse winning here. And I kind of look at some of these other horses, and you got an optional claimer, you got a horse that's been just running in My Boy Prince, who was running in the King's Plate, was favored in the King's Plate, and yeah, I don't know. There's just not a lot here, I don't think. So I'll go with Big Rock. But I mean, if Big Rock's going to be 5-2, 3-1, I'm not really that interested.
I mean, what did you guys think? Actually, I have two questions. First off, what did you think of the one? That's kind of the wild card in the field to me.
That's the only other horse I want any money going through is the one, because I think that horse, that last race came back huge in time for him. And you're getting a horse, yes, first time turf, but I don't really think Philo is a major player in this race. Yes, early pace complexion, totally, but I think Playmate Tune is the horse that kind of sits off, and when Philo stops, is going to get first run. So I think the from a pace complexion standpoint, Plamia is interesting. I don't know if, but again, sometimes those synth figs don't necessarily translate to turf. But I think that horse is really kind of interesting. It's the other horse that I'd want to have on tickets. Probably I have a lone A and a lone B. I have a lone A to Naval Power. I have a lone B to Play Me a Tune. And if I'm playing something like a pick 4 or pick 5 in this sequence, and that's probably how I approach it. Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to be very concerned with the price here, because if Play Me a Tune is going off at second or third choice, I think.
Oh God, no way,
it's a
no
play
way.
against.
I need that 12-1. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty there. But I do think that he's kind of the wild card. And I guess the other question I sort of had is, Josh, I don't know, did you happen to look at the optics plot for this race?
I did not.
If you do, I mean, Naval Power is far from a 1-9 shot if you look at the plot. And admittedly, he only has 2 races stateside. They don't count his overseas races and whatever else. But purely looking at that, I think Naval Power is maybe the third or fourth horse I would want, just looking at the plot. So again, I mean, I think I by no means am I saying he's the third or fourth likeliest winner, or that I would have him and go 4 deep or anything like that. But oftentimes, I'll use optics in a race like this to test. I mean, okay, my 10-second glance says that Naval Power looks really, really good. Is that validated, or is there maybe a little bit more if I want to dig a little bit deeper? And to me, I think this is one of those races where it kind of highlights and shows that it's a deeper race than it may be at first blush. Even if Naval Power wins, I think it's a race that's worth taking a second glance at.
Yeah, and it's tough with Naval Power because, right, you have 2 seconds since since shipping over, and honestly, in American racing, we have 2 huge outliers, right? Because you look at the race at Keeneland was run on yielding turf, right? And ran second to Master of the Seas. But, I mean, we run a handful of yielding turf races a year, and I mean, Keeneland's probably where we probably run the most, if I had to guess. Maybe, just Kentucky in general. We don't tend to, we tend to baby some of these other turf courses. And, Naval Power had that race over soft going, so you would have thought the ground wouldn't be much of an issue for the horse. And then the other start is good turf, but it's on what could possibly be the weirdest turf course in America at this point, in Kentucky, Churchill Downs. You would think that it's Kentucky Downs, but no, it's the where the grass don't grow. So it's interesting, right? Like, did Naval Power just happen to catch 2 just like absolutely like awful courses that nobody can run over, and we get weird results on, or you know, or hey, just ran into a buzzsaw Master of the Seas, and Churchill Downs, did them in. It's really what you got to think. But I feel like now I'm asking way too many questions about a horse that's going to be 2 to 5, 3 to 5. You know what I mean? So I kind of agree with you, Caleb. Like once I find myself asking this many questions about a horse that is like needs to win this race 75% of the time in order for it to be profitable. Yeah, I mean, you got to look elsewhere, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I would even go as far, to say that the 2 points you bring up, like, yielding turf course and a quirky Churchill course. I mean, that could almost make him look better than he is. I mean, we've seen a lot of horses freak at Churchill that ran terribly anywhere else, and we've seen a lot of soft turf specialists. So this horse, we know he handles soft turf. We've seen it in the past, and you could. I mean, I'm not saying that I believe this necessarily, but I'm just saying for a horse that's going to be 3 to 5 or 2 to 5, the points you bring up, maybe that's blunted his ability. I mean, maybe it's exaggerated it. I mean, I think it's just as fair to look the other direction as well.
Cool. Well, I think that's going to do it for us here. Mark, what do you got going on this weekend?
Not sure what I'm going to be doing this weekend. Probably playing a couple BCBC qualifiers, trying to, one of us is qualified, so I need to get myself in, and hopefully I'm not going to spend more trying to qualify than I'll actually, just spend trying to buy in myself. But
That's never happened to me.
No. That would never clearly ever happen to anyone ever. I'll see if I can find a couple spots where I can try to take some qualifier shots. But probably a little bit light, honestly, through the next month or so. I'm a bunch of traveling for work, bunch of personal travel, and other things going on. So, as much as I'll be a little bit choosier with my spots.
Caleb, are you degenning or house hunting?
I'll probably be house hunting, so I might be around a bit, but probably not super available.
Yeah, you sound excited about that.
Yeah. Also, I mean, it's first week officially back at the office, and I don't know how I used to do this 5 days a week, but it is exhausting.
I was laughing last week because you were like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be back at work, and then you're like, yeah, I took the whole week off. I was like, this freaking guy, dude, like, what the hell? What a charmed life you live.
I know.
Yeah, and I'll probably be pretty light. I mean, I'll probably look at some Churchill stuff, but I'm working on kind of a couple projects for I don't know, one horse racing, and then I'm kind of investing a little bit more time into the sports side. So kind of doing some stuff there. I got a full slate of college football and NFL stuff coming up. So we'll see how it does. And who knows? Maybe after this week, I'll be swearing off sports betting like I do horse racing. But thank you guys for watching. Obviously, check us out at ontherwronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. And make sure you guys go ahead, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next week.